Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome to another episode of News Dose. We'll give you all of the latest news in the game industry. And today has been a very busy news day. When I first woke up, I was thinking the biggest news piece would probably be that there is likely to be a new Crash Bandicoot game to be announced this week. But then 2K confirmed that there is a new Bioshock in development. And then I'm thinking, wow, that's really big news. But even after that, Xbox Scarlett and Xbox Lockhart's targeted specs have leaked online, and the Scarlett is an absolute beast. Actually, there is a quote that says Scarlett will eat monsters for breakfast, and I think that is about the perfect way to put it. Even Lockhart is much more powerful than the current Xbox One X on the market, and there is some misinformation going on around that which I will look to correct in this video. So we'll talk about those leaks as well as the new Crash Bandicoot, Bioshock, and more, so stay tuned for that, but first let's talk some leaks. So this rumor right now is coming from a reliable source, and it was posted on Windows Central, so this isn't like all the previous rumors that's popped up, where some person just posts some random numbers on a forum to try and get some attention. This actually comes off as, at the very least, believable. But when you do hear the specs of Xbox Scarlett, you almost have to do a double take because of how good they are. Now, I do want to emphasize that these are targeted specs, they're not final, and things could still change. With that said, the source also said that Microsoft will be looking to unveil the Scarlett very soon, which really has me interested in just how soon we're talking about. I don't believe they'll show anything at the Game Awards. That would kind of be odd, so I'm thinking they'll announce their own event here soon. I'd wager on a February or a March announcement, but that's just a pure guess, and nothing really more than that. With all that said, let's talk about the Lockhart first, because I think that is where most of the misinformation comes from. Of course, it was leaked last week that Team Xbox was developing two Xbox consoles, and one of them was meant to be a cheaper, more affordable option codenamed Xbox Lockhart. Well, today we got the targeted specs, which is around a Zen 2 3.5 GHz processor and 4 teraflops of GPU computing power, and I think that is where the confusion starts. People look at the teraflops alone and think, that's weak. But actually, the Lockhart will be much more powerful than the Xbox One X that has 6 teraflops of computing power. And you're probably thinking, well, that doesn't make any sense. Xbox One X has a larger number of teraflops, so it would be more powerful. But Xbox One X is using the Polaris architecture, whereas Lockhart is using Navi architecture, which the teraflops do scale differently. It doesn't need as many teraflops to be more efficient. And on top of that, you're looking at a huge increase with the Zen 2 processor and the NVMe solid-state hard drive. So yes, this thing will be much better than the current Xbox One X. Lockhart is looking to target 1440p 60 frames per second, so you're just mainly looking at a 1080p console, with better frame rate, and there's probably going to be better textures and so on and so forth. You're probably also wondering what will happen with Xbox One X, and my guess is it will likely be phased out as time goes on. I think Xbox One X can live comfortably on the market for a while because that thing is a beast in its own right, or at least for this generation, but eventually it will be phased out because the Lockhart will be a better option. The pricing for Xbox One X and Lockhart will be the most interesting thing to follow, I think, here. Now, as for the Scarlett, which this thing is truly menacing. The targeted specs is 12 teraflops, and again, that's using the Navi architecture, which we already talked about how it scales differently to Polaris, so we're talking a significant increase over the current generation of consoles. It will also have 16 gigabytes of RAM, 3 in which will be dedicated to the operating system, and 3.5 gigahertz processor. Added to this, both the Scarlett and Lockhart will have an NVMe solid-state drive, which will majorly decrease load times. This is unbelievably powerful, but if this actually turns out to be true, you have to wonder about the price, because it sounds like it may be as high as $600. And I know that sounds absurd because we saw what happened with the PlayStation 3, but with Lockhart also being available, they could still price that thing very competitively. So could they possibly go all out with the Xbox Scarlett? And how much of a loss will Microsoft be willing to take? I mean, they could take a large hit to really compete with PlayStation. There is still a lot of variables to consider here. Though I've said this a lot on the channel and how I think Xbox Scarlett and the PlayStation 5 will be very similar in terms of power, but this leak does make me question things. The current rumor has been that PlayStation 5 is around 10.4 teraflops, though I have no idea if this is actually true or not, but if it is, Xbox Scarlett would be significantly more powerful than the PlayStation 5. And I also think Sony believes the sweet spot in terms of price is $400. So could the PlayStation 5 be $400, the Scarlett would be $500, and then Lockhart $300 to maybe even $350? Or are we looking at something like Scarlett $600, PS5 $500, and the Lockhart at $400? I really don't know, but honestly, the Xbox Scarlett sounds like it will be absolutely amazing, and I can't wait to hear more about this thing. Again though, this is just the targeted specs, so we will have to wait and hear directly from Team Xbox on this, but what do you think? Let me know what you think each console will be priced at in the comments below. Now speaking of Xbox, we now have got 2 different Xbox games confirmed to be at the Game Awards. One will be Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which that does make sense. That game is being released in the coming months, so the Game Awards would be a good place to create some hype around that game, and well-deserved hype really. I think Ori and the Blind Forest is one of this generation's best games, so I'm expecting a lot from Will of the Wisps. But also they are apparently going to be showing Gears Tactics, and that's a game we really don't know much about yet. I mean, we know it's a Gears spin-off with XCOM-like gameplay, but that's pretty much it. As a big Gears fan myself, I'm very excited to see what they have in store for this game. So yeah, if you want to see Gears Tactics, you might want to tune in to the Game Awards show, which reportedly has 15 new games to show there. It really sounds like that show is going to be a must-watch by this point. Something else that the Game Awards might possibly show is a new Crash Bandicoot game, and this would be a huge deal. Of course, Activision has had a lot of success with Crash Bandicoot in the last few years with the Insane Trilogy, and then you had Team Crash Racing's last year, but now Activision has been sending big social influencers Crash merchandise. Now this seems kind of an odd thing to do just out of the blue, unless you're trying to create some kind of hype, for an announcement of maybe a possibly new game, which is actually what Activision did right before Team Crash Racing was announced last year. And if you remember, it wasn't even that long ago when we talked about on this channel that a new Crash game was leaked on Twitter. It revealed that it took some inspiration from Super Mario Bros. 3 with the overworld, and you could even play as Cortex and Coco on certain levels. So I think this rumor very likely might happen, and if it truly is announced this week, it could end up being at either the Video Game Awards or even PlayStation's State of Play. I could see it being at either place, especially considering PlayStation's history with Crash Bandicoot. Nonetheless, I am very excited to see what they do with Crash. I mean, this will be the first Crash made by Activision, it has nothing to do with Naughty Dog, in a very, very long time, and we know that Activision hasn't really done a great job in the past, but hopefully that's all changed here. In other news, Valve News Network is claiming that Valve isn't just working on Half-Life Alyx, but that they're also working on a new Left 4 Dead game. But it also is virtual reality, which I know is not going to make everybody happy. But it looks like Valve is going all out on virtual reality. I mean, Half-Life Alyx was already a very big announcement, but a new Left 4 Dead game would be a really big deal as well, and I think it would be an amazing virtual reality game. I'll just say this, I have both the Oculus Rift S and PlayStation VR, and it is a very cool technology, and when the games do it right, then there just isn't an experience out there quite like it. And I think Valve is going to be in that category where they make really high quality VR games, so if you're interested in VR, I think now may be the time to jump in. Again though, I know these type of announcements frustrate some people, considering they have been wanting a new Left 4 Dead and Half-Life for years and years, and now that they're finally being released, they're coming in a form you may not have been expecting. So let me know what you think of Valve's new direction for their games. Now the last thing I want to talk about is that a new Bioshock game was announced by 2K, and it's being developed by a newly formed team Cloud Chamber. That just kind of came out of nowhere, and I hadn't really heard any recent rumors on this or anything, but once upon a time, Bioshock was one of the biggest and most well-received games in the entire game industry. The odd thing is we just haven't really seen a Bioshock game in so long. I mean, the last time we saw a Bioshock game was Bioshock Infinite, and it released last generation in 2013, so it has been gone for a very long time, coming up on 7 years actually. Though we should pump the brakes for just a moment because we're likely to be waiting another 3 to 4 years before we do get to play it. But I think that's fine, honestly. This long break gave the franchise plenty of time to rest and to be missed instead of overly milked, and now when it comes back, people will rightfully be very excited for this legendary franchise. I personally think this is very exciting news. I know it's still a ways away, but personally, like I said, I think it's exciting. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit that bell notification and subscribe button. Peace out.